Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share my review of the first volume of Gods of the Forbidden North from Pulp Hummock Press. This is written by Robert Alderman with Chris Cotgrove, the Scrying Dutchman, and Joel Hines. This 473-page hardcover is not available right now. We'll discuss that a little bit later in the video because this is normally a print-on-demand book over at DriveThruRPG, and there are some changes that have been made. So you'll be able to order this once again print-on-demand at the end of March. But you can grab the PDF alone for $24.99 over at DriveThruRPG. I do believe the MSRP of the hardcover book and PDF together as a combo is $69.99. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Volume 1 of Gods of the Forbidden North. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, the fine folks over at Pulp Hummock Press were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's really important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of this book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what's inside this volume. Lastly, this is an adventure. So if you are a player and your game master is considering picking this up, maybe they have picked it up or they've picked it up and started running it. As a player, I definitely recommend tune out now. You don't want to have surprises ruined simply because you watched this video. Now, of course, I am going to stay away from spoilers as much as I possibly can. But there are going to be some spoilers. And of course, there are going to be some spoilers just inadvertently because we're paging through the book. So once again, as a player, definitely recommend tune out now. But if your game master has been considering picking this up, let them know about this video. So let's jump on in. First thing we'll take a peek at here is the credits page. Got a lot of artists who worked on this. And I've got to say, I really like the old school vibe of the artwork throughout. Is it, oh my gosh, the most modern looking artwork? Absolutely not. But it does have that OSR vibe to it. And it's really nicely done. It is all black and white, little grayscale as far as the artwork. I enjoyed it. And let's make sure we give credit where credit is due. This is a mega adventure. And to the authors and my knowledge, it is the first mega adventure ever written for Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy. So if you are going to use Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy, you need both books. You need the player book, you need the referee book. But the thing too is just about any old school Renaissance retro clone could be used to run Gods of the Forbidden North. In fact, I would even go as far as saying that it wouldn't be all that difficult to port this over to Castles and Crusades, Shadow Dark, or even some NuSR role-playing games out there. So what you're going to find is that the first portion of this book is devoted to giving us a bit more history about this game world, especially this area of the frozen north, which is also forbidden. It's important to keep in mind, too, that this is not just a Nordic flavored adventure. Absolutely not. Now, there are some flourishes of the Norse legends and things along those lines, but this is not just a rehash of Norse mythology or anything like that. There is a lot of really original content in the first volume here of Gods of the Forbidden North. This is the first volume of a planned 3-volume adventure. So the second volume is up on Kickstarter right now. It's got over 20 days left to it, I believe. I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the end, when I share my final thoughts and give this a review score. As far as production quality, really, really nicely done, which I have to say, DriveThruRPG has really upped their game over the past year, maybe year and a half, as far as print on demand. It was a little hit or miss early on, but this is really nice. Paper stock, nice and thick. There's no smudging. Everything is nice and clear. I don't know if this is a premium hardcover or if this is a standard hardcover, but it is really nicely done. So let's talk about what's in this book as far as the gazetteer. So you're going to find loads and loads of information about this region. We're not only going to have info about the peoples and the cultures and the religions. We get a lot of information about the deities in this region too, which I appreciate. I like that quite a lot. But we also get information about weather because this is the frozen north, and geography. There is a hex crawl essentially to this. So once the player characters make it to the initial adventure site, which is this port city of Velkengard, which we get a lot of detail about that city as far as an adventure location. So once they get to there, the Game Master has an important choice ahead of them as the player characters move out from the city of Velkengard. They can either use this as a sandbox and essentially just let the players do what they will and travel to the different locations. There are 5 dungeons that are included in this volume. But the other thing too is that the Game Master also has the option of making this an adventure path. So if the Game Master is far more experienced with running 5e D&D or Pathfinder or more modern styled role-playing games, then the adventure path is going to make sense for them. I love that. I love how the players have been given these options. So very, very nicely done. As you can see, this is just loaded with content. So the premise to get started in this adventure, the player characters are going to find themselves landing in the port city of Velkengard. And they learn that they happen to be in the possession of this ancient item which unlocks the tomb of this, in fact, right here, Morcal. It opens his tomb, and they hear that this tomb is filled with treasures and arcane knowledge. And your player characters start off at first level. And of course, nothing gets those first level player characters' juices flowing faster than learning about dungeons and tombs and temples that have treasure and unknown arcane knowledge available. So that is going to be what begins to spur the player characters on to finding this tomb. So the players learn they have the key of Jakara. That is the ancient item that will unlock the tomb. So, of course, player character is going to set off to find Morcal's tomb. But the thing is, they're also being pursued by this dark sorcerer, which I happen to use that all the time in my Call of Cthulhu games. I love to spur my players on to activity by having a rival faction, a big baddie on their tail. I find that it really kind of puts a spur into the players to get things done. So we are going to find, once again, as I mentioned, 5 different dungeons throughout. And as you can see, this is just jam-packed with content. So let's talk a little bit about the content, because something that Robert Alderman has done is he has not fallen prey to the failed novelist syndrome that we see with a lot of role-playing adventures out there. Now, do we get a lot of information? Yes. Is that information sometimes a little overwhelming for the game master and probably the players? Yes. We don't get huge info dumps. We also don't get a lot of background information that doesn't matter to the game at the table. You know what I'm talking about. So all the information within is very concise, very well presented. I could see utilizing this book, even as large as this book is, I could see utilizing this relatively easily at the game table. So we also have stat blocks for monsters and NPCs as we're going along. And then, of course, we have in the appendices much more detail about the new monsters and important NPCs. I also love the fact that you notice we have these gray boxes. These gray boxes will show a lot of side information for us and kind of like advice on role-playing tips, notes for the game master. Really like that a lot. So speaking of the appendices, now we get into the monsters and NPCs. Sadly enough, really not seeing much as far as images here. Even though enough of these come from your traditional monster manual, you could probably use images from Monster Manual for some of them. I mean, we've got like mummies and skeletons, even though it just doesn't say skeleton. You know, it's a certain kind of skeleton. You could probably get away with using images from that. We've got a lot of cool items. We've got new magical items, different spells. So as you can see, there is loads going on in this book. And then we'll also have a glossary and our index. Now, the index print is pretty small. But hey, we get an index. And then, of course, a list of the backers, some info about the authors. So very, very well done. So that is a look inside first volume of Gods of the Forbidden North. Let's swing on over to the other camera because I'm going to share some final thoughts as well as my review score. Gotta say, this is an impressive achievement, especially considering it's one main author, Robert Alderman, and then a handful of other people who contributed. Really, really nicely done. The production quality of this print on demand, really nice. I am going to tell you why you can't get it print on demand right now, because it's something that addressed one of my quibbles about this book. But the adventure itself inside, really cool, excellent OSR adventures. And I also like that there's also some discussion of the OSR in Volume 1 for those out there who aren't overly familiar with some of the themes and tropes of the old school Renaissance. I thought that was nice. Everything you need to run this adventure is located pretty much for the most part at your fingertips when you need it. Something else I really, really liked. Minor quibbles. Maps are weak. Got to be very honest, the maps in this book are kind of weak. But here's the thing. Glenn Seal over at Monkey Blood Design and Publishing, I think that's now what it's called. You know, I've reviewed some of Glenn's stuff in the past. He has redone a lot of these maps. They are in the PDF. The file for the print on demand is being updated. That's why you can't get the hardcover right this moment. But you will be able to, I believe, starting March 28th. So not too far off that you got to wait to be able to get the hardcover. Also, this is for 6 to 8 first level characters. Kind of tough to get that many people at most gamers' tables. Yes, I understand you could go out there and play with more than one player character. But the reality is most gamers out there they only want to role play with a single character. So might have to sit there and trim down the challenges, the amount of monsters and things like that that the players face. So probably a little bit more kit bashing needed for most of the game masters out there. So there is that. Should also point out that in some ways, this is a little too much of a good thing. But I know you're probably sitting there thinking, seriously, Jeff? Too much good stuff? It can be kind of overwhelming with all of the content that is in this volume. And remember, keep in mind, there's 2 more volumes out there. The second volume is up on Kickstarter right now. It's successfully funded within minutes. And it still has, I believe, over 20 days for you to be able to back it. I know you've got time after watching this video to get on board and back it. So just think. So you're probably looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 1,300 pages? Ay. So the reason why I say too much of a good thing is because this is a mega adventure. So consider a mega adventure like a mega dungeon. Sometimes that can fizzle out. Sometimes it's too much for most game masters and players. Now, if you have players who love taking characters from 1st to 20th level and higher in the old school Renaissance way, I'm not talking about, well, we spent 2 hours playing your 2nd level now. Oh, we've been playing for 4? Well, now you guys are 3rd level. No, I'm talking about investing a lot of time, a lot of sessions. If you as a game master and your players are into that, well, then by all means, this is going to knock your socks off. If not, then you might want to pick and choose what you really dig about this first volume and utilize that at your game table. So I'm just pointing out there is loads and loads of content in this book. It is essentially a good thing for most people, but for some, it will be a bit overwhelming, and they may not see the end of this volume, let alone all 3 volumes of Gods of the Forbidden North. Small quibble. All small quibbles in essence. And the biggest ding I had was the maps being kind of lackluster. Well, we know that that's taken care of now too. So I will not consider that in my review score. If Glen Seal wasn't providing those new maps, or I should say provided those new maps, this wouldn't have as high a review score as it gets. It wouldn't get a huge ding, but a little more of a ding. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Volume 1 of Gods of the Forbidden North a 9.5 out of 10. If you like old school Renaissance gaming, if you are running old school Essentials Advanced Fantasy, this is a must-have. No getting around it. This is a must-have. Even if you did not run this as written, the individual dungeons, the city, the gazetteer, all of this content in here can easily be plugged into your homebrew. I also love the fact that once you get to the city of Vilkengard and the player characters are ready to set off to find that tomb, Game Master has a couple of options. They can go with more of a hex crawl, just a sandbox, or they can go adventure path. And I love that that's available because that adventure path is going to provide for a streamlined experience, which those out there who don't want to be spending months in the frozen north might consider. But we also have all that great content if you want to take the OSR approach as well. So all in all, this is a fantastic volume. I highly, highly recommend picking it up. And by way of that, I would certainly recommend, if this has piqued your interest, go check out the Kickstarter for Volume 2. I will include a link to that Kickstarter in the video notes. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you do, be sure to ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube as I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news and pontificate about the state of our hobby. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.